hard to believe, but the once majestic volcanoes of America's Pacific Northwest are literally cracking apart from the inside out.
Mountains in Oregon and Washington have been identified by the U.S. Geological Survey as very high threat volcanoes: Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens, and Mount Rainier.
From Mount Rainier's trembling glaciers to Mount Hood's swelling slopes and Mount St. Helens' deepening fissures, scientists say the entire Cascade Range is under unprecedented stress. Satellite images taken in early 2025 reveal what experts are calling tectonic tearing. Long, jagged fractures slicing across volcanic peaks, valleys, and even through forested foothills once thought stable. For decades, these mountains have stood as silent monuments of the Pacific Northwest, frozen giants that seemed unshakable. But now, the US Geological Survey has confirmed something shocking. These volcanoes are not eroding, they're expanding. Internal magma pressure, seismic tension, and glacial melt are all converging to split the region's peaks from within. Ground deformation maps from NASA's INSAR satellites show that sections of Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, and Mount Hood are bulging outward, in some cases by as much as 6 centimeters per month. The fractures are not isolated, they're connected. Cracks are spreading along a vast subsurface corridor, the same fault line system that birthed the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Gas emissions have spiked across multiple sites. Carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and even traces of hydrogen sulfide are venting through new fissures forming at higher elevations. The mountains are quite literally leaking from their cores. Scientists warn that this could signal a chain reaction of structural collapse, a domino effect of volcanic destabilization that could reshape the Pacific Northwest's skyline forever. So the question haunting geologists right now isn't if the mountains will break, but which one will go first. And when it does, will we still recognize the Northwest that rises from the dust? Chapter 1. On the cracks beneath Mount Rainier. What if the most dangerous fractures in America aren't in its cities or bridges, but in the very mountain watching over them? In early 2025, a research drone scanning Mount Rainier's icy slopes captured something terrifying. A massive fissure stretching across the southern face of the volcano, splitting through layers of snow and rock like a wound. At first, scientists thought it was a surface glacier fracture, harmless, seasonal. But new satellite passes showed it widening day by day. Beneath the ice, the ground itself was moving. Geophysicists at the USGS Cascades Volcano Observatory confirmed that seismic data from Rainier had shifted dramatically. Tremor frequencies once associated with fluid motion deep underground were now being detected right beneath the summit, a sign that magma pressure was climbing fast. Instruments buried in the soil recorded the mountain slope tilting outward by several centimeters per week, proof that the volcano's flanks were beginning to inflate. Thermal imagery revealed heat anomalies blooming across the upper ridges, where steam vents, some dormant for centuries, had reawakened. The gases pouring out weren't just steam either. They contained traces of sulfur dioxide and carbon monoxide, signatures of magma rising toward the surface. And then came the sound. Local hikers described hearing a low, guttural rumble echoing through the valley, like thunder trapped underground. When researchers installed subsonic microphones, they discovered a chilling pattern. A 37-minute pulse, repeating like a heartbeat. Experts say the fractures are forming where the crust can no longer contain the pressure. Once these cracks reach critical depth, magma could erupt laterally, bursting through the side of the mountain instead of the summit, just as it did at Mount St. Helens in 1980. If that happens, lahars could sweep through Orting and Puyallup in under an hour. The glaciers that once made Rainier majestic could become rivers of boiling mud, carrying entire forests into Puget Sound. So the question isn't whether Mount Rainier will break, it's whether the Pacific Northwest can survive the day it finally does. Chapter 2. Mount Hood is splitting open, Oregon's time bomb. It's hard to believe, but Oregon's most iconic peak, Mount Hood, may be tearing itself apart. Long celebrated as the crown jewel of the Cascade Range, Hood has always loomed peacefully above Portland, serene, white, and unshakable. But new geological imaging from NASA's Sentinel radar satellites reveals something no one expected. The entire western flank of the volcano is fracturing outward. Deep cracks, invisible to the naked eye, are carving through the mountain's spine, widening by centimeters each week. At first, researchers thought the readings were calibration errors, until local hikers started posting photos online showing fresh fissures in rock faces that had been smooth for decades. One photo from Timberline Lodge's upper trail showed a jagged fault slicing across a ridgeline like a lightning bolt. Within days, the US Geological Survey confirmed the nightmare. Mount Hood's outer shell is destabilizing. Ground-based tilt meters and GPS receivers around the volcano show the same alarming pattern. The slopes are bulging outward, and seismic noise is intensifying beneath the summit crater. Hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, and sulfur dioxide have all surged, indicating that magma is pressurizing the system from below. INSAR data shows hot zones radiating outward in a circular pattern, meaning molten rock could be forcing open fractures across multiple sides of the peak. Scientists now warn that Mount Hood may be entering a phase of structural failure, similar to Mount St. Helens before its 1980 lateral blast. The terrifying possibility is that the next eruption might not come from the top, but from the mountain's flank itself, blowing sideways with unimaginable force. If that happens, the first targets are the valleys below, the Columbia River Gorge, Hood River, and Government Camp, home to thousands of people and critical infrastructure. The pyroclastic surge from a lateral eruption could travel at more than 400 kilometers per hour, flattening everything in its path. So the question no one dares to ask out loud is this: if Mount Hood's heart is cracking, is Oregon next in line for the eruption that changes everything? Chapter 3. Mount St. Helens, the monster returns. What if the mountain that already changed America once is preparing to do it again? For more than 4 decades, Mount St. Helens has stood as both a warning and a wound, the most infamous volcano in US history. Its 1980 eruption carved away half the mountain, erased 230 square miles of forest, and left behind a crater so vast it looked like a missing piece of the planet. For years it slept, steaming quietly, exhaling now and then, but never fully waking. Until now. In early 2025, the US Geological Survey detected a surge in deep harmonic tremors beneath St. Helens, the kind of long rolling quakes that only happen when magma moves through narrow rock passages. At first, the pattern seemed routine, minor activity, nothing to panic about. But then, seismic stations across southern Washington picked up something new, a low-frequency hum resonating from 10 kilometers below the surface, increasing in strength every week. Soon after, satellite imagery confirmed what scientists feared. The crater floor is rising, not by inches, but by meters. Between January and March, it lifted nearly 8 feet, the fastest deformation rate since 2004. The data points to a massive magma intrusion, refilling the chamber that blew the mountain apart 45 years ago. Thermal scans show pockets of new heat glowing inside the crater, and fumaroles, vents that had gone cold for decades, are now hissing again, their plumes reaching higher and hotter with each passing day. Snowmelt around the rim is accelerating, feeding creeks that now gush with sulfur-stained water. And yet, the mountain is eerily silent. No explosions, no ash, just tension building under rock that's already been broken once before. Geologists warn that if the rising magma breaches the plug sealing St. Helens' throat, it could collapse the crater floor and trigger an even larger eruption than the one in 1980, this time ejecting debris sideways, straight into forests, rivers and towns that have since been rebuilt. So the question isn't whether St. Helens will erupt again. That's inevitable. The question is how much of Washington will still be standing when it does.
Chapter 4.
The sisters are splitting. Oregon's sleeping giants stir. It's hard to believe, but the trio of volcanoes known as the Three Sisters in central Oregon, north, middle and south, are no longer sleeping. They're shifting, cracking and rising from within. For the past 2 decades, satellites have quietly tracked a massive uplift zone forming west of South Sister, a slow, steady bulge stretching nearly 30 kilometers across. Scientists once thought it was harmless, just the crust adjusting after centuries of glacier melt. But in late 2024, the data changed. The bulge accelerated, lifting by nearly an inch every few weeks, far faster than any natural subsidence cycle. Then came the quakes. Hundreds of small tremors rippled beneath the mountains, all clustered along a mysterious ring-shaped fracture zone. When researchers plotted the epicenters, the pattern stunned them, a perfect circle, outlining what appears to be a new magma chamber, forming 5 miles below the surface. Gas sensors along the Cascade Lakes Highway began detecting trace sulfur dioxide, a sure sign of magmatic degassing. Streams near the South Sisters base warmed by nearly 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Local hikers reported hearing dull booms underfoot, like distant artillery. And when infrared drones scanned the peaks at night, they picked up something no one had ever seen before: a faint, circular heat signature expanding beneath the snow. This isn't a simple uplift anymore. It's a pressurized system. A massive pocket of molten rock appears to be pushing upward, fracturing the surrounding crust. The entire Three Sisters volcanic complex, quiet for 2,000 years, is beginning to move as one.
USGS volcanologists warn that if these fractures continue to spread, the next eruption might not come from a single cone, but from multiple vents erupting simultaneously, splitting the Cascades wide open. Such an event could bury parts of central Oregon in ash and choke the skies above Bend, Eugene, and even Portland. So the question haunting scientists now is chillingly simple. Are the Three Sisters waking up together or breaking apart forever? Current sective, very festival life. The mysterious ring-shaped fracture zone. When researchers plotted the epicenters, the pattern stunned them. A perfect circle, outlining what appears to be a new magma chamber forming 5 miles below the surface. Gas sensors along the Cascade Lakes Highway began detecting trace sulfur dioxide, a sure sign of magmatic degassing. Streams near the South Sisters base warmed by nearly 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Local hikers reported hearing dull booms underfoot, like distant artillery. And when infrared drones scanned the peaks at night, they picked up something no one had ever seen before: a faint, circular heat signature expanding beneath the snow. This isn't a simple uplift anymore. It's a pressurized system. A massive pocket of molten rock appears to be pushing upward, fracturing the surrounding crust. The entire Three Sisters volcanic complex, quiet for 2,000 years, is beginning to move as one. USGS volcanologists warn that if these fractures continue to spread, the next eruption might not come from a single cone, but from multiple vents erupting simultaneously, splitting the Cascades wide open. Such an event could bury parts of central Oregon in ash and choke the skies above Bend, Eugene, and even Portland. So the question haunting scientists now is chillingly simple. Are the Three Sisters waking up together or breaking apart forever? Chapter 5. Crater Lake is breathing again. The hidden inferno beneath Mount Mazama.
What if one of the most beautiful places in America, a turquoise jewel of calm, is actually the mouth of an ancient monster? Beneath the serene waters of Crater Lake, scientists have discovered that the remnants of Mount Mazama, the volcano that exploded 7,700 years ago, are stirring back to life. Once believed to be a dormant relic, new seismic and chemical evidence suggests something extraordinary. The caldera itself is inflating. In late 2024, NASA's Terra satellite detected subtle bulges rising from the lake floor. The data was cross-checked by sonar scans from research vessels, and what they found was undeniable. The bottom of the lake is rising by nearly 2 centimeters per month, and thermal vents that were once dormant now glow with new heat signatures. Hydrophones placed beneath the surface recorded low-frequency booms, deep, throbbing sounds that can only come from magma forcing its way upward through cracks in the caldera's crust. To make matters worse, chemical testing of the water showed a spike in dissolved carbon dioxide and sulfur, both clear precursors to volcanic degassing. The USGS has since confirmed that molten rock is re-entering Mazama's ancient chamber, the same chamber that once collapsed and formed Crater Lake itself. But this time, there's a terrifying twist. The magma is rising through fractures that extend beyond the caldera walls, connecting to regional fault systems that run all the way toward Mount McLaughlin. And even, is Crater Lake still a lake, or a volcano pretending to sleep?
Chapter 6.
Mount Shasta's hidden fractures, California's sleeping giant awakens. It's hard to believe, but deep in Northern California, Mount Shasta may be cracking open from the inside. Long considered one of America's most symmetrical and serene volcanoes, Shasta's perfect cone has started to tremble. Satellite radar, GPS sensors, and gas monitors all point to a disturbing truth. Something powerful is pushing upward beneath its snow-covered slopes. In early 2025, scientists with the USGS Volcano Hazards Program detected a surge in shallow earthquakes radiating from beneath Shasta's southeastern flank. Not random quakes, but a clustered swarm following a clear pattern of magma intrusion. Within days, the mountain's profile changed. The upper slopes began to inflate, bulging outward by several centimeters per week. It was the same warning sign that appeared before Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980, and before Shasta's own last eruption more than 200 years ago. Thermal imaging drones now show hotspots forming along the ridges and fissures, expanding across its icy surface. Some of these cracks run nearly a kilometer long. From the air, they look like veins of black glass, frozen conduits where heat and pressure are slowly fracturing rock apart. Deep below, seismic tomography reveals an expanding magma pocket, feeding molten material towards the surface through multiple fissures. So the question haunting California's volcanologists isn't whether Mount Shasta will erupt, but whether we're already watching the cracks that mark the beginning. And if these fractures keep spreading south, will the next volcano to awaken be the one no one's watching?
Chapter 7. The Cascadia split, when the entire Northwest begins to tear. What if every fracture we've seen, from Rainier's trembling flanks to Shasta's broken ridges, isn't a series of isolated warnings, but the beginning of a continental split? Across the Pacific Northwest, satellites are now tracking something that defies old geological models: the Cascadia Subduction Zone itself. The massive fault where the Juan de Fuca plate dives beneath North America is starting to deform in ways never before recorded. The crust isn't just bending, it's ripping. INSAR radar from NASA and the European Space Agency shows long, sinuous fractures running beneath the spine of the Cascade Range, invisible from the surface, but spreading fast. These cracks appear to connect major volcanoes like Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, the Three Sisters, and Mount Shasta in one continuous chain. Geologists call it a lithospheric linkage, a deep tear in the planet's crust that could allow magma, gas, and tectonic stress to interact directly. The result? Volcanoes that were once independent may now be communicating, their magma chambers pulsing in rhythm, pressure building in one when another releases. That's exactly what data from 2025 shows. Each time a tremor hits near Rainier, microquakes spark beneath Mount Hood. When Hood's gas vents spike, magma levels rise at Shasta. It's a terrifying feedback loop. Seismologists warn that this kind of synchronized behavior can only mean one thing. The region's crust is approaching its mechanical breaking point. If the subduction interface finally snaps, it could unleash not only a series of volcanic eruptions, but a megathrust earthquake, one strong enough to reshape the entire Pacific coast. And when the Earth decides to tear itself apart, will anyone be able to stop the chain reaction once it starts? Chapter 8. The final fracture, when the mountains fall silent. It's hard to believe, but after months of tremors, heat surges, and widening fissures, the entire Pacific Northwest may be standing on the edge of something no generation has ever witnessed: continental transformation. Satellite radar now shows the cracks running deeper than anyone imagined, some plunging more than 20 kilometers into the crust, connecting magma chambers, fault lines, and hydrothermal systems in one vast, living network. It's as if the Earth beneath the Cascades has become one single organism, breathing, shifting, and preparing to move. Volcanologists are calling it the Great Cascade Breach, a phase where centuries of stress finally begin to release, not through one eruption, but through dozens of simultaneous ruptures. Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, the Three Sisters, Crater Lake, and Shasta are all showing synchronized microtremors, pulsing like a heartbeat. It's the same eerie pattern scientists recorded before the Indonesian volcanoes erupted in sequence in 1815, triggering a global year without summer. And yet, amid the chaos, there's awe, because this is the Earth rebuilding itself in real time. Every crack, every plume, every tremor is a reminder that we're living on a planet still writing its own story. The Cascades aren't dying, they're becoming something new. So the haunting question remains: when the last fracture reaches its breaking point, will the Northwest crumble, or will it rise again, reborn from fire and stone? If this story shook you, don't look away now. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us as we uncover the next seismic secrets shaping our planet. The Pacific Northwest may have started cracking, but it's only one piece of the global puzzle, because the next eruption, the next quake, the next warning could already be underway beneath our feet.